Welcome to the Science and Transportation Channel. Today, we will be discussing the Constellation-Class frigate and its role in our proposed U.S. Navy fleet architecture. The Constellation-Class began as a derivative of the French and Italian frigate. However, years of additional Navy requirements substantially altered the design, increasing both displacement and cost. At roughly 7,400 tons fully loaded, the ship sits between traditional frigates and destroyers in size. It carries 32 Mark 41 vertical launch cells, the Spy-6 radar family, Aegis-derived combat systems, advanced sonar arrays, helicopters, and significantly greater survivability than the littoral combat ship. Critics often describe the frigate as offering 80% of the cost for 60% of the capability, compared to a destroyer. But that misunderstands the purpose of the ship. The Constellation-Class is not intended to replace destroyers in ballistic missile defense or long-range strike warfare. It is intended to absorb a substantial fraction of destroyer missions at lower procurement and operational cost. If a frigate costing 80% as much as a destroyer can successfully perform even one-third of destroyer tasking, overall fleet costs still decrease while total hull count and operational flexibility increase. The original acquisition strategy emphasized minimal redesign and rapid procurement. But between 2020 and 2024, the Navy steadily added new requirements for survivability, shock hardening, combat systems, radar type, electrical generation, cooling, and internal arrangements. These changes increased displacement and cost, and schedules slipped several years beyond original expectations. Critics from the Congressional Budget Office, Government Accountability Office, and Defense Press increasingly argued that the Navy had undermined the original purpose of selecting an existing mature hull design. Even many supporters of the program now argue that requirements should have been frozen earlier in order to preserve more of the original design's affordability and schedule advantages. Despite these problems, the Navy's operational requirement has not disappeared. The fleet still needs a high-end frigate optimized for anti-submarine warfare. And this is where the Constellation-Class differs from both the littoral combat ship and lower-end patrol frigate concepts. The ship was specifically designed for fleet anti-submarine warfare operations in contested environments. It incorporates quieting measures, advanced sonar systems, towed arrays, aviation support capability, and survivability standards intended for high-end naval combat. Proposed lower-cost alternatives may provide useful escort capability, but many were not designed as dedicated fleet ASW combatants like the Constellation-Class was. Another major factor is development cost. Much of the expensive engineering, testing, and combat system integration work occurs during the first several ships of a class. Once the lead ships are completed and the design stabilizes, follow-on vessels generally become cheaper and easier to construct. Supporters argue that canceling the class now would repeat mistakes associated with programs such as Seawolf and Zumwalt, where extremely short production runs left per-unit costs exceptionally high. And even if the cost savings ultimately prove smaller than originally hoped, continuing the Constellation-Class still provides a major industrial advantage. It establishes Marinette Marine as a third American shipyard capable of producing sophisticated surface combatants, equipped with Aegis-derived combat systems. The Constellation-Class program has clearly encountered serious problems. Costs have increased, timelines have slipped, and confidence has been damaged. But the Navy's underlying operational requirement has not disappeared. The fleet still needs a modern frigate with escort capacity and anti-submarine warfare capability, operating below the size and cost of a destroyer. In spite of its flaws, Abandoning the Constellation-Class would not leave the Navy in a better position. Instead, it would leave the Navy searching once again for a ship that already exists. Thank you for watching.